You, of course, are listening to the MHA podcast. Why in the world would you play Isaiah McKenzie over your third-round pick, T. Higgins? Why? I like any quarterback that can make Will Fuller look good.
I love it. I think he's a top 20 receiver.
I mean, he is the Jamar Chase whisperer.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, my God.
You know, everybody loves Lamar Jackson.
Hated it.
I trust Derek Carr.
Come on. For real?
I know why you did. It's because you're crazy.
It's still the week and the games aren't even over yet. It's great. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Patrick Mahomes. Looks so good. Kyle Pitts was bad. It stank.
It's not my shebang. Justin Jefferson.
So good.
We could call him Russell Wilson if you want.
Ooh. Well done, sir. That is good stuff. All of those guys have more fantasy points than Tom Brady. I'm laughing, but I'm crying at the same time. It's terrible. What is up, MHA owners? It's August 2nd. We are finally in August. You can feel the NFL season coming down the pipe here. So exciting. Of course, with me, Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Fantastic. We got some we got a light show in the sky. It's great. Ready to talk some quarterbacks.
Light show?
It's just lightning, and it's just lightning.
Oh,
just like,
does that
it's
bother
like,
you?
No, I'm
You
just
okay?
saying.
You're going to hide underneath the desk like the dogs of the world? We can get you a blanket.
No, I was saying it's a light show because it's just lighting up the sky. And we're going to talk about quarterbacks because quarterbacks light up the field.
Boo.
Sure. Mikey, how are you doing this Thursday? Is it Thursday? Wednesday. It's Wednesday night.
Wednesday.
I wish it was Thursday already.
Yeah, Mikey's ready for the weekend.
Everybody's always ready for the weekend. No, Todd, don't start singing. I don't think that's anything that anybody wants to hear.
I think Todd was going to. He was kind of
He was.
laughing about that.
Yeah.
All right.
We do it all for the weekend.
As Todd was saying, we're going to talk about quarterbacks on this show. I told you I wanted you guys to give me a quick hot take. We're not going to go into it. We'll talk about the quarterbacks later after we get through the news and some trivia, but I wanted you guys to give me a quick hot take to kind of tease the show. So, Mikey, why don't you give me a hot quarterback take?
Mine is Deshaun Watson returns to form, ends up being a top 10 quarterback.
Whoa. Yeah, I definitely noticed that on Mikey's rankings. Wow, Deshaun Watson. Okay, Todd, do you have a hot take?
Trevor Lawrence will finish in the top 3 in quarterbacks this year.
Okay, I don't mind that. Trevor Lawrence, a lot of upside. Got Calvin Ridley. We'll talk about that. It was always tough to go through these hot takes, but I'm going to throw one out there. I think Matt Stafford can be a top 12 quarterback this year.
Ooh.
There's not a lot of things to like about the Rams and Matt Stafford, but there is some things to like, and we'll talk about it as we go through. So some fun hot takes as we get into it. But let's first start things off with the news.
I don't understand what the news is. It's just like, hey, here's a bunch of you can't fix that happened that was horrible.
All right, we'll start things off with Joe Burrow. For those, it happened just after, or may have been the next day after a podcast from last week, but ended up going down, no contact. It looks like he's going to miss a few weeks with a calf strain. So everyone that was interested in Joe Burrow or has him on their team or thinking about having him on their team, they could take a collective sigh. It's like it's just going to be a couple weeks. You never know when someone goes down like that what's going to happen, but he seems like he's going to be okay. One gentleman who's not okay is Jonathan Taylor. He wants to be traded. He fired his agent, picked up a new one, had a long conversation with the upper management in Indy, and wants to be traded. That whole running back situation is crazy. And you want to side with them a little bit because they do a lot, and they're not probably getting paid as much as they should because of the lifespan and how quickly their skills can deteriorate. But Jonathan Taylor, we'll have to keep an eye on that, see where he goes. The guy who was the number one scoring running back 2 years ago. Mikey?
He is so screwed. Like the Colts know they're going to suck anyway, so they have no reason to trade him. He's just going to sit there.
You're telling me they wouldn't trade to try to make their team a little better? Because like this is his final rookie season, so if they don't do something with him, he just walks, right?
This is Jim Irsay we're talking about. This is called digging your heels in. And no, he's not going to walk because they can always hit him with the franchise tag if they want, which for running backs is not that much to keep him around. So, yeah, I mean, to me, he's kind of screwed.
Well, for fantasy owners, we're worried about this year. So depending on what happens, you hope he doesn't sit out and not play because it just takes another running back off of the market. So we'll keep an eye on it. We saw Saquon. He ended up signing a 1-year deal, still waiting on Josh Jacobs. So something to keep an eye on. Jimmy Graham. Guys, Jimmy Graham back in the mix. Signed with the Saints. Hadn't played since 2021 when he was hanging out with Chicago. Anybody excited about Jimmy Graham as the tight end for the Saints? Anybody?
Boring.
Yeah, no, Jimmy doesn't. No, Jimmy doesn't like that. No, Jimmy doesn't like that.
He is currently 4th on the New Orleans Saints depth chart behind Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and Taysom Hill. So depth, who knows? The last time he played, of course, I mentioned 2021. 15 games played, 14 receptions, 167 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jimmy Graham, ladies and gentlemen. Little more important news. Cooper Kupp appeared to pull up during a route yesterday. Might be dealing with a hamstring issue. Haven't heard anything on the latest, but a guy who's more than likely going to go in the first round, and hamstrings are always finicky. So Cooper Kupp dealing with a hamstring. That is scary stuff, and that'll hurt the Matt Stafford hot take for sure if he's not out there. Worse news, or I should say at least tougher news, is Tim Patrick, again, going to miss an entire NFL season. Tore his Achilles. And, gosh, he signed that big contract 2 years ago. I mean, he got paid, so there's that, but didn't play last year because he tore his ACL, and now this time his Achilles. Poor Patrick and the Broncos. Maybe Jerry Jeudy flies up the rankings now, huh, Todd?
Yeah, damn right he's going to. He's going to have to. There's no other option because I don't think the Broncos are going to go out and go try to sign a big name wide receiver that maybe is still left on the market. I don't know at this moment, or try to trade for somebody. Jerry Jeudy sees this opportunity now. He's gonna have to step up.
Oh, okay.
There's the sigh. There it is. There it is.
Okay. What year is this for Jerry Jeudy?
So 2020 is when he got drafted. So this is year 3.
You sure this is not year 4? I feel like this is the same conversation we have every single year, and it's tiring.
I know that we talk about it all the time.
Year 4. This will be year 4.
Year 4.
Yeah. So, I guess time to live up to your potential in year 4. I think we know what he is by now.
All right, we'll talk about Jerry Jeudy once we get into the wide receivers conversation. Should be a fun one. We'll have everybody ready. We'll have rankings and so forth. We'll keep moving with the news here. We were talking about on the last show, like, man, these Seahawks always drafting running backs. Well, it's because they get hurt all the time, and it continues today. Both of their top running backs, at least according to the depth chart, in terms of Walker and Charbonnet, both hurt right now. Hooray. Walker dealing with a groin issue. Of course, that could always be a pain in the rear. And then Charbonnet dealing with a shoulder issue, which apparently he didn't get hit in practice. It's something that was, quote, said, kind of came up on him. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if he was dealing with it and they didn't know. I have no idea really what that means. But Seattle dealing with some running back injuries every year with this team. Every year. So if you're thinking about, well, who's next on the depth chart, Eric? DJ Dallas, or the rookie, Kenny McIntosh. I guess we'll talk about them if we have to as we get closer.
You know where
We
DJ
don't
Dallas is
have
from?
to. We don't
You know where
have
DJ Dallas is from?
The U.
Yeah.
Well, as Mikey said, we don't need to talk about him. So,
Yeah.
just like every other U player. Alvin Kamara.
Come on.
Alvin Kamara. The U, whatever. Alvin Kamara talked with Roger Goodell, I think it was today, about his car incident. You know, we were worried about it last year. He played the whole year. We'll see if there's a suspension coming down the pike here. Could be 2 games, could be 4. Who knows? But that's something that we need to focus on the news because Alvin Kamara, starting running back over there in New Orleans. I know a lot of folks aren't super high on him in terms of fantasy, but if he's out there, he'll get drafted. All right. I didn't see any other news, so let's go on to some MHA trivia.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game.
All right, gentlemen, let's get into it. We're going to talk about quarterbacks, of course. So, I'm going to ask you guys a question. We're just going to go back and forth. Whoever gets to 4 first wins the game. Sounds good? Sounds simple enough, right? And we'll let Todd go first because we always let him go first.
Yay.
All right, it's time to play the game. All right, gentlemen. The question is, I want you guys to name me the quarterbacks that had the most. Oops, let's get the music back on. So, which quarterbacks had the most 50-point games in our league last season? Todd, go first. Give me an answer.
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. The answer is correct. Mahomes actually led everyone with 10 50-point games. He also had 5 60-point games and 3 70-point games. So Todd takes the lead. Mikey, over to you.
I'll go with Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow, Cincinnati quarterback, is correct. He actually is tied for second. He had 8 50-point games. He had 3 60-point games and 1 70-point game. So Joe Burrow, second. Todd, back to you. All right, so let's go back to Todd. We're tied 1-1. Todd, give me another quarterback that had multiple 50-point games in 2022.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. That is correct. Hurts was 4th on the list. He had 7 50-point games and he had 2 60-point games. Todd takes a 2-1 lead. Back to Miguel. Who do you got?
I got Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Another correct answer. You guys are doing great work here. Josh Allen, 8 50-point games, had 5 60-point games, and 1 70-point game. So we're tied 2-2. Todd, back to you. See if you could take the lead here.
I'll go with Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. Todd's correct. Kirk Cousins was tied for 5th with 60. Excuse me, 60. Well, that'd be an incredible number. 60 50-point games. He had 6 50-point games, 3 60-point games, and a 70-point game. Todd takes a 3-2 lead over Miguel. Back to you, Mikey.
I'll go with Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert. Another correct answer. He had 60. He was tied for 5th. did it again. 6 50-point games and 2 60-point games. We are tied 3-3. 2 more answers left on my board here. And let's see what you guys can do. And if we have to go to a 9th, we'll go to a 9th. So, Todd, back to you. Try to retake the lead.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Oh, I am so sorry. Goff ended up with, looks like, 4 50-point games, so he was not in the top 8. Back to you, Miguel. 2 names here on the list.
I'm going to go with Tom Brady.
Tom Brady? Are you sure you want to say Tom Brady? Remember all that drama I had with him last year?
I do, but I just feel like it makes sense and it could be like a trick, but I'm going to go with my gut.
Good idea. And Mikey wins MHA trivia again. Brady was also Brady also had 6 50-point games. He also had 2 70-point games. So big time. And one more that the 8th guy had was Trevor Lawrence, who had 5 50-point games and 2 60-point games. So I went through. Oh, I pushed the wrong button here. I was correct. That was all I was saying there. Just some interesting numbers on these 50-point games. Obviously, that's kind of the, I don't know if that's the number. You guys can tell me. Is 50 like good quarterback week, or is that average? What do you guys think about when you see 50? Like, oh, my quarterback had a good week.
Yeah, I think if you get 50, like you should be in a good position to win.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I'm just gonna throw out a name, and you guys tell me how many 50-point games you think they had. I'm gonna say. Trying to think of someone. I'm just going through my list here. Russell Wilson. How many 50-point games did he have last year? Todd, who had him on his team.
2.
Very good. Look at you go. Nice job. That deserves a blank. How about Dak Prescott?
3.
Whoa. Look at Todd go. How about another name here that has incredible potential? Tua. How many 50-point games did he have last year? Mikey had him for a brief moment.
I'll say 3 again.
Sorry, you lose. No, I'm just kidding. He ended up having 4, including that 86-point game. Was that week 1, Miguel? Week 2? It was very early in the season, right?
Yeah, it was pretty early. That's right after.
So 50-point games. I did all the math. That's now all of my rankings. So at least I got something out of it. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about quarterbacks. We got through some MHA trivia, and now I'm going to go to my list here to kind of talk about the top 12 quarterbacks last year and how they finished. So I'm just going to go from 1 to 12. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, we talked about it last year, 917 points, finished first overall, ended up leading the league in passing touchdowns with 41. Joe Burrow finished second, 828 points, followed by Josh Allen, who had 819. Number 4 in the list, Tom Brady. Did score a lot of points. Didn't have a lot of touchdowns, but completions definitely added up for the now retired former Buccaneer and Patriot. Josh Herbert was 5th with 800 points. Kirk Cousins, he was 6th with 770 points. 7th was Geno Smith at 755. And then what are we at here? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Trevor Lawrence, 737. 9th, Jared Goff. How about that in the top 10? 720 points. Also with 720 points, Jalen Hurts. How about that? Jared Goff had the same amount of points as Jalen Hurts. Hurts did miss a couple games, so there's that. Aaron Rodgers, also in the top 12. He had 640 and 12th, if I'm just making sure. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Daniel Jones. Can you believe that? Top 12 quarterback last year. Daniel Jones, 628 points. All right. So let's talk about that quarterback position a little bit. And I'm going to start with Mikey because we had an interesting kind of conversation as we kind of blew it up on the bowling front last night. But that's another conversation for another day. But you were kind of talking about the depth of the quarterback position. And Mikey, you don't feel like it's very deep this year.
Nope, and I didn't feel like it was deep last year either, and I think I was right about that. Yeah, it's worse because Brady's gone, Kyler's hurt, and it's not good. I don't know any other way to put it.
He doesn't feel so. You don't feel like. And I ask this question every year, and I hate being repetitive on it, but it's a valid question, I believe. But so in terms of guys you feel comfortable, you would like to have on your team or feel comfortable having on your team, I think you said something to the effect of 7 or 8 last year. Do you feel the same, or is it even worse than that this year?
It's worse. I think it's 5.
Worse. So Mikey's drafting a QB early because he doesn't feel comfortable after 5. And we have rankings. We'll talk about him as we go through this one. Todd, how do you feel about quarterbacks this year?
Well, from somebody who had Russell Wilson and Tyler Heineke, woohoo! Yeah, gonna draft quarterback pretty early this year, I think. You always say if you can find a quarterback that at least can get you, 30, 40 points, a week, and the rest of your team, you draft well with the rest of your team, then it shouldn't matter. But quarterback's important, and you need one that can at least put up now at least 40, 50, or even 60 now. Or saw last year, Tua putting up an 86. That's pretty good. So you need one of the top guys, or at least somebody in the top 10, at least quarterback wise, to feel comfortable with. Because if say your wide receivers or one of your running backs has a bad week or something, and your quarterback only puts up maybe 30 or 40, that's just not going to do it. So you need a quarterback that at least can put up 50. So if say one of your wide receivers or running back has a bad week, you're still in good shape. So yeah, I'm drafting a quarterback pretty early.
Ooh, maybe a preview when we do our mock draft near the start of the season. Yes, quarterbacks are important, but is it worth it to draft him super early? Our champion, right? He won it with Jalen Hurts and draft him in the 8th round. So then it becomes, is it about getting Patrick Mahomes? I mean, obviously Mikey drafted Mahomes last year and made the playoffs, so there's that. But did it help Pollen more because he was able to wait on quarterback and develop his team a little bit more? So is there something to, yes, of course you want to get the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens and, the Herberts, whatnot. But if you wait and pick a guy that ends up having a fantastic season, maybe not the best quarterback, but good enough that you also have that great quarterback and depth at running back and tight end or wide receiver, whatever you kind of built in that regard. So Mikey, is there something to that, or is it just important to get him early and not test the, I guess, lottery pick type of draft, I guess, strategy, if you will?
So I think it's hard to say that, and just to base it off of the fact that Pollen won the championship and drafting the quarterback in the 8th round. It can be done, but I think the easiest path to getting one of those 6 spots is having that quarterback. I mean, I had Mahomes, I made it. Aaron had Burrow, he made it. I mean, look what Allen did, it's you had Brady. So like having one of those guys, it doesn't guarantee you anything, but it's for me the easiest path.
All right, so let's talk about it. Ranked. Looking at everyone's rankings, I have them all in front of me. I feel like every year someone's, I think this is the first time in a while that we've had a consensus number 1, Patrick Mahomes, the guy who finished number 1 last year. What a season, 41 touchdowns, only 12 picks, also had 4 rushing touchdowns to go along with 358 rush yards. Todd, was this a no-brainer, or was there a kind of a battle to decide who was number 1 for you?
No brainer. It's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, just Chiefs can suck it, but it was pretty easy. Patrick Mahomes, and we thought maybe Patrick Mahomes would have not regress, but have like not a Patrick Mahomes type season with because Tyreek Hill was gone, but him and Travis Kelce look pretty looking like they're not missing Tyreek Hill anytime soon. But no, this almost brings you back to really the consensus quarterback when we had the years of like Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was the number 1 guy. I think for the most part. I mean, yes, it was still with Tom Brady in his prime and Drew Brees, but it was Peyton Manning. And I think that's what I feel like. That's when I was going through my rankings. I'm like, it didn't. I didn't even have to think about it. As soon as I was sitting down, I was typing. I said Patrick Mahomes. I didn't even have to think on that one.
Do you feel the same, Miguel? With the Chiefs, they lost their offensive coordinator, the guy who's been a big part of the success in Kansas City. He's now over with the Commanders as their offensive coordinator. Matt Nagy steps into the role now, but still no qualms for you?
Well, first of all, because Todd said we. That was not my take last year. I did not see regression. I thought that he would find a different way of doing things and that he'd probably, find a way to have, more completions because he wouldn't have the big play.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I took him. I kind of, when I rank my players, I like to look at, what their receiving options were the previous year, what they are now. Same with coaches, changes there. Like I have Mahomes, I don't have him like decreasing or increasing. I just have him standing pat. But I don't think that the people behind him elevated enough to overtake him in that one spot.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, I mean, obviously Travis Kelce returns. He's another year older, but didn't look like he slowed down at all last year. You see the other options: Isaiah Pacheco, Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Sky Moore, Jerick McKinnon. But I mean, I just don't think that bothers me, who also had Patrick Mahomes number one. He did it last year with kind of the same group, and they have such a great offensive line, and they're going to pass a ton, and they were the top scoring team in the league. There's so much to like about him. And if you look back, he finished first last year, fourth 2 years ago, third in 2020, fourth in 2021. So he's always in the mix. He is a solid, he's a superstar. He's probably the face of the league. So yeah, number one really wasn't hard for me either. So after Patrick Mahomes, who should be number two? Mikey, who's number two on your list? I know what it is, but tell the audience.
So in my original rankings, I had it as Joe Burrow, but the calf injury kind of influenced me dropping him just because I'm not 100% confident that he's going to be ready to start week one. So my number two right now is Justin Herbert. And that just has to do with the change to Kellen Moore as the OC.
Yeah.
They added Quentin Johnson, the first round pick. Todd thinks he's Calvin Johnson. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think it does give them another receiving weapon. His touchdowns were down last year, but that's never a statistic that I look at because I think that touchdowns are probably the least predictable thing. Like for me, the volume's the more predictable thing. Touchdowns can, fluctuate because maybe you have a guy wide open who drops a touchdown pass and then a wide open touchdown, and then maybe the running back gets it on the next down. I mean, stupid stuff happens. And so he could easily have a lot more touchdowns than he did last year.
I totally agree. He averaged 34 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, the first 2 years of his career, then had a regression of 25, but a lot of injuries to Keenan Allen, to Mike Williams, and then they bring in another wide receiver to come into the mix. Their offensive line is solid. I think they're just going to throw even more with Kellen Moore, so I have him ranked third, and Todd has him ranked fifth, so we're all pretty high. We're all pretty similar in how our top five kind of shakes out. And so I don't know if you want to say anything. Who is your number two? So Mikey's is Justin Herbert. Mine is Josh Allen, and so is Todd. So tell me why you have Josh Allen at number two.
Obviously the offense that he's in, obviously throwing to Stephon Diggs. I just think, again, I think this is going to be Josh Allen's year. I mean, and I just think the fact, they're trying to get Josh Allen to throw the ball more than running. Obviously, we do like that because the fact that the goal line he runs it in, but he's right there with Patrick Mahomes. That he can put up 50-point games and more every week, and so forth. So that's why I have him slightly over Joe Burrow. But again, you can, like you said, I agree with you. With the top 5, you could easily, flip flop a lot of those, a lot of the quarterbacks, and it's still and nobody still and nobody would be like, oh, nobody would say anything about it. So I just think all these quarterbacks are really close. It's just Patrick Mahomes is just a smidge, ahead of all those quarterbacks.
So I'm just gonna make one point on Josh Allen, and this is why I have him lower than you guys. When we had the podcast 2 weeks ago talking about the new faces and new places, the argument was made, and it wasn't made by me, that Damian Harris being there would, be toting the rock, inside that 10. And if that's the case, then I think that hurts Josh Allen, because I mean Josh Allen's been their goal line back. If they truly brought in Damian Harris to be a goal line back, then that's gonna hurt his numbers.
Yes. Just looking over at Damian Harris and what he did last season, he had 3 touchdowns, kind of injury plagued, but 2 years removed from 15 touchdowns and 15 games played with those Patriots. The thing, I obviously think the running aspect for Allen's going to play a big deal. I am not sold on these Buffalo Bills running backs. Like, I feel like Harris is solid, and James Cook's more of a passing back. But I mean, there's no one they can rely on unless they bring in Dalvin Cook, and that could change things. So I think Josh Allen will probably lead this team in rushing touchdowns again. But the thing that I looked at that has me a little hesitant in putting Josh Allen at number 2 is that his passing attempts were way down from last year to 2 years ago. In 2021, they were 5th in the league in 655 pass attempts. Last year, 14th, 574. So that is a huge dip. And of course, they lost Dable 2 years ago. Now Ken Dorsey is like the offensive coordinator. And so, and Bills were only 4th. They're still high in terms of scoring. They scored 53 touchdowns, which is 4th in the league. But I think they want to run more, but I don't think they have the running backs to do it. Like Latavius Murray's in the mix. I don't know if that means anything. But outside of Stephon Diggs, there's not a lot of excitement at wide receiver. So I don't know. Like Josh Allen is amazing. He's incredible. Racks up completions. Of course, we talked about he had 8 50-point games, 5 60-point games, and a 70-point game, and rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns make a huge difference. But I don't know if he's up to, like, it was easy to put Patrick Mahomes over Allen, and as I'm working with Herbert and what kind of weapons he has, and if they're going to throw the ball more, I could see why Mikey had Herbert over Allen. But I don't know. There's a lot to worry about. Let's talk about Joe Burrow a little bit. Mikey dropped him a little bit just because of his injury. Maybe he comes out of it unscathed. Just give me some quick thoughts. We saw Joe Burrow. What did he finish? Second in our league in points last year, 414 completions, 35 touchdowns. He also had 5 rushing touchdowns, which definitely helped him out a ton.
So yeah, the injury for me, I mean, a calf strain, it's something that you can't really, that seems like something that's going to be nagging unless they have him 100%. So like I said, until I hear he's 100%, so that my ranking on him could change. If I hear he's ready for week 1, then I don't have any concerns.
Can you tell us where you would put him if he's healthy and 100% ready to go?
I would have him either second or third. My other concern though with him is he returns his top 4 targeted guys, Chase Higgins, Boyd, and Mixon. They lost Hayden Hurst and Samaje Perine. So I don't know like who's going to replace those dudes. They brought in Irv Smith, who hasn't proved anything, to replace Hayden Hurst, and then no, I don't know who the backup running back's going to be. I figured they were going to be like the perfect spot for Ezekiel Elliott. So I mean, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, that running situation. I mean, I'm someone who likes Joe Mixon, and he can catch the ball. He had 60 receptions last year, so he's definitely someone he can rely on. So I wonder if that puts Joe Burrow in a better position to even throw more here this season. So, Todd, give me some of your quick thoughts on Joe Burrow. You have him ranked in your rankings third, so you like him enough? Do you feel like he can put up similar numbers or better numbers this year?
Still has all his top targets, and has Jamar Chase to throw the ball to. So I think he can do better. I think he can even do more than he did last year, and do that way. I mean, it's obviously the injury. Definitely you didn't want to see that. I mean, granted, they're going to be careful with him, but yeah, Joe Burrow can be. I said Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Those three, I really believe, can you can flip flop, because Joe Burrow could have like could just have like a wow season. Same thing with Josh Allen. So yeah, Joe Burrow is obviously is very capable of doing that, even finishing as the number one quarterback, in fantasy. So it's very possible.
So I just want to bring up one more point on Burrow, because this was something that I wrote in my notes, and it was just I don't have like a statistic that can prove this point. It's just something that I picked up on when I was watching the Bengals last year. I was annoyed at times, and because I had T. Higgins, at the way that they would call plays in the second half of games. Like if games are close, they're totally different than most teams are, as far as like playing aggressive and like trying to score using their passing game. Like, and I'm sure Eric, having Joe Mixon, remembers like they would like just 3 downs, run Joe Mixon into a wall with our bad offensive line, and then we'll punt. Like it's I don't know. This is a point I wanted to bring up.
Sure. So because there was a lot of games where they were up big at half, and so they would kind of take their foot off the gas pedal and punt and let the team kind of back in it sometimes. Their defense was solid, but yeah, their offensive line was average at best. They kind of came in ranked 17th now, and so it seemed like instead of going for the kill, maybe something like how Tampa would go, right? They would just continue to go,
Yeah.
no matter what the score
Buffalo.
is. Yeah, like they're not satisfied until that final bell is over. And I think with that situation, they couldn't run the ball effectively with either Joe Mixon or Samaje Perine, and then at some point the game gets a little closer, and then they have to try to bail themselves out at the end, and they did, because Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. So no, I like how you brought that up. Continuing on, we talked about Justin Herbert. Let's talk about Geno Smith. Can he replicate what he did 1 year ago? Geno Smith finished 7th in our league in points, 399 completions, 30 touchdowns, over 4,200 yards passing. He also had 366 rushing yards, 4 50-point games. I'll start with Mikey, just because we were talking about it yesterday. I know Mike's he thinks, well, at the time he thought it was a fluke, didn't think he could do it again, and then he was putting his rankings together, and now as we look through it, he's a top 8 guy for him this season. So if you talk about Mikey who thinks that the quarterbacks aren't deep, having Geno Smith at 8 really says a lot.
No, it doesn't. So here's the deal with Geno Smith. This is exactly what I think he's going to be. If you have Geno Smith, then you're playing for like being a 500 team, because he'll be a guy that finishes like higher up in points scored for the season, but it's going to be because he's consistently at a number that you're just kind of like, okay. You're not going to have
he won't kill you, but he won't wow you either, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you with bad ones. He's just going to be consistent at where he is. So he's like the ultimate, like, safe, but no upside.
Todd, what do you think about Geno?
I mean, I have him ranked 13th.
Yeah, you have him lower than us for sure.
I mean, again, first of all, nobody. I mean, if you made a bet that Geno Smith was going to do what he did last year, I mean, you'd be a rich man. But I don't know. I don't know if he can replicate what he did last year to this year again, because teams now. Because I think last year, and teams probably won't admit it, but they're like, "Oh, it's Geno Smith. This is going to be easy." I mean, he's, was kind of a career backup, kind of stunk it up in New York and stuff like that, and obviously learning behind Russell Wilson helps, but I don't see it. I don't see where he's gonna replicate what he did last year, because teams now know, like, all right, Geno Smith he's the real deal, and I think teams probably just didn't respect him as much as they probably won't admit it, but that's the way I think it is. And but yeah, I mean, 13th, that's not, I didn't put him like at number 20 by any means, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to replicate what he did last year.
So are both of you saying you hope he's not your number one quarterback?
He won't be my number one quarterback.
No, he won't.
No.
I'm not saying hope. I'm telling you he's not going to be.
He's like, no, not hope. No, I'm telling you.
I hope he's not my number one either. But I don't know. I mean, slow and steady. Maybe he gets better. I mean, he's got weapons up the wazoo, if you believe in the guys that they drafted for this team this year. Bringing in Jackson Smith in Jigba, and then Zach Charbonnet. Of course, Metcalf and Lockett are incredible wide receivers. I mean, offensive line is always near the bottom, but I mean, it was in the bottom last year, and they drafted 2 rookies in 2020. I don't know. I'm not trying to talk myself into Geno Smith, but I think we're being a little disrespectful to a guy who had 755 points for us last year.
So I'll just make a recommendation for all the owners, and our owners are pretty smart. But if you do it, don't draft Kenneth Walker, because then you're kind of screwing yourself. I don't think Seattle's a team that's going to be putting up 30 points a game. And so I think, and Kenneth Walker's not really a guy that's involved in that passing game. So I think it'd be a bad idea to pair the two together.
Sure, I can get that. I can understand that. I'm just trying to look up the touchdowns they scored last week. Well, they were top 10 in scoring. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Geno Smith. I don't know. I think we need to give him a little more love. How about another guy who broke out last season, Trevor Lawrence? He finished just behind Geno Smith. Second year with the Jaguars. 387 completions, 4,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks. Also had 5 rushing touchdowns. He had 5 50-point passing a game, or 5 50-point games, and 2 60-point games. Todd, how are you looking at Trevor Lawrence? You have him, I believe, you have him 7th.
Yes, absolutely. And this is and I think this is going to be the season where Trevor Lawrence really introduces himself to the NFL. I said in our, kind of a hot take at the beginning of the podcast, I think Trevor Lawrence finishes as a top 5 quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, once in a generation quarterback. Now finally has a coach now that knows what he's doing. Great weapons around him. We'll see what Calvin Ridley, has in him. So that might be huge for him and so forth. But Trevor Lawrence, I really believe he's going to throw that rock around. And I'm predicting for him 5,000 yards passing, at least say 30 touchdowns and maybe 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns. But I think this is where Trevor Lawrence really, kind of, like I said, introduces himself to the NFL and, starts to, a little bit times put himself in the conversation. And again, it's going to be a probably bold and hot take all at the same time, but, trying to put himself up there with the, with the top tier quarterbacks and, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Herbert.
Mike, you have him ranked 6th. You're pretty high on him as well. If you don't get Mahomes, you don't get Herbert, do you feel comfortable with Trevor Lawrence being your top guy?
Comfortable? No.
The list gets shorter as we go
does.
through this podcast.
Todd, what do you mean introduce himself to the NFL? He was the number 1 pick. Who doesn't know who he is?
I'm just saying introduce himself in the sense of really putting up some big numbers and
superstar status.
Okay. Do you know how many quarterbacks had 5,000 yards last year?
I think I want to say 4.
1. And it was Mahomes. Like, that's 900 more yards. That's a lot. Like, if he hits 5,000, he's going to be in running for number 1. I don't know if I'm that bullish on him. I do have him 6 because of what I perceive to be the lack of depth. I think the Calvin Ridley thing will help him. I do feel like towards the end of the season, he started to get more comfortable with his receivers around him. Second year with Doug Peterson, I think that'll help. I can trust him more, but I wouldn't say that I would be 100% comfortable with him as my number 1.
That's fair.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Not a great offensive line, but they're a decent pass blocking. Not great at run blocking. They do throw more than they run. Can Calvin Ridley come in and make it different? I mean, Kirk was great. They also bring in Zay Jones, Evan Ingram as well. So there's weapons there for him to be successful. That offensive line can keep him up and he runs, 3 or 4 touchdowns again. He could easily be a top 5 guy. Not that I'm taking away from Todd's hot take, but there's a lot of things that can go right for Trevor Lawrence, more than I feel like they can go wrong, unless, they have pretty much the same coaching staff in place. So there's not too much change there. So, being consistent, get from one year to the next, I would be, I don't know if I'd say comfortable. I have him ranked 7th as well. So if I wanted to wait, I would be happy if I waited and got 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I'd be happy with that. Trevor Lawrence, we'll see. We'll see where he kind of falls.
I'm not convinced, Eric.
You're not convinced that he can get 30?
No, that you'd be happy.
Well, you're trying to talk yourself.
You have high expectations
for Trevor Lawrence or for my starting quarterback?
For your team in general.
Well, yeah. We've had 2 really good seasons in a row, so of course. But you're also trying to be, and I think that's what wins the chance. What gives you the best chance to win? It's great to have the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, but did you get that running back or a good wide receiver in the 4th or third and 4th round, especially if I'm on the turn, and then wait to get Trevor Lawrence later, and then he ends up doing great, and then I have all this extra depth, and it makes a difference winning it as opposed to, I rode the back of Josh Allen and I had to go and get, a 3rd tier, 4th tier running back later. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And maybe this is a question as we get into our wide receivers and running backs is, can I wait on can I wait on quarterback because the depth on running back wide receivers aren't good? Or if they are, then I can get a quarterback now and then get good running backs and wide receivers later.
I'm not buying it. You had the number 1 receiver last year and the number 4 quarterback, and you hated Brady the whole way.
That's a whole nother story. Let's not get into Brady. He is retired. We don't have to talk about him anymore. I don't have to worry about it. Okay, next question I have on quarterbacks, and I'm not 100% sure where we are in time because we had to stop for a little bit. But let's talk about who would you guys rather have? And we'll start with Todd this time. Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott? Kirk Cousins finished 6th overall one season ago, 424 completions, which is pretty high, 4,500 yards passing and 29 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns. Dak Prescott was injured for 5 games. He finished with 261 completions, close to 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Todd, who would you rather have between Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott this season?
Ooh, the injuries with Dak Prescott definitely scares me a little bit. I'd go with Kirk Cousins because he's got probably arguably the best wide.
Wait a minute.
I was about to say the same thing.
Wait a minute. Todd. So on your list, you have Kirk Cousins ranked 12th and Dak Prescott 10th. So why are you changing it now? I mean, if you have an explanation, please, I'd love to hear it. Maybe something changed your mind, and that's what we're about here is going through the motions and figuring out what, based on rankings and based on what someone said. So why are we changing our rankings?
It's more I don't know. The reason I put Dak number 10. I mean, it's not a huge gap, but Dak is probably Dak can get rushing touchdowns. Can get rushing touchdowns more than Kirk Cousins can, but the injury scares me. But if it came down to it in my rankings, it's tough because Kirk Cousins is sometimes inconsistent, and Dak can be erratic sometimes. I guess I would. It's so tough. I don't want either one of them, but I guess I'll stick with my rankings and just for this, I'll say Dak Prescott that I would take over Kirk Cousins, even though Kirk Cousins is attached to arguably the best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson.
Oh man, I certainly hope that when we do the draft that he's in a position where he has to choose between the two.
Yeah, that's not happening because I'm drafting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen because.
So since we're going to talk about people after this point, should I even ask you questions the rest of the way just because you're not going to draft them?
Depends.
Mikey, can you give me some logical analysis on why you have Dak ranked higher than Kirk Cousins? What do you think about those two?
Okay, so my biggest thing with Kirk Cousins, and this is more of a gut, but I think them losing Dalvin Cook is a bigger loss than a lot of people are expecting. Like, we don't know. Nobody knows because Alexander Mattison, he's had a few opportunities, but now he has to be the guy. And I just wonder, with a team that's offensive line is not great and lost Adam Thielen, even though he wasn't that great, and they got a rookie coming in. Minnesota as a whole, I think, is going to be worse this year. And I think that's going to hurt Kirk Cousins. Dak, new offensive coordinator. I actually think the addition of Brandon Cooks is going to help that team a lot. And it's going to help him. It gives him a consistent, deep threat and a guy that at least is going to be not spectacular, but dependable.
Yeah. Looking over Minnesota, they added Jordan Addison. KJ Osborne was solid in spots last year. TJ Hawkinson was brought in. And their offensive line is kind of ranked in the middle of the pack, according to PFF.com. I agree where if you lose Dalvin Cook, because he also could catch the ball in the backfield and, kind of put the defense on notice that they run the ball. So that opens things up for the wide receivers down the field. So Madison, who's not, Cooks has missed a lot of games over the last 4 years, and Madison has had to step up. Has he been as good as Cook? No, but he's been productive. But the thing I think that excites me about Kirk Cousins is Minnesota's defense is terrible. So he's going to have to throw. And there'll be situations where he'll throw picks and it'll cost him games just because that's kind of the Kirk Cousins MO, or he'll have a great game and then he won't have a great game the next week. But, he's been pretty consistent with his touchdowns. Like the offense got better, even with Dalvin Cook gone, but bringing in Hawkinson excites me. So I like him way more than Dak. Although I have Kirk Cousins ranked 6th, Dak 9th, so just a few spots down. I just don't know if I believe in Dak as a good quarterback, an NFL quarterback. You're like, well, fantasy-wise, Dak was just 2 years removed for 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns, but his running has slowed down a ton. Not that Kirk Cousins is a runner, but that's what made Dak kind of a top 5 quarterback for all those years because he could run the ball as well, and with all those injuries.
There's also the proven thing with Kirk Cousins is that he's not good in prime time and he's not good on the road. So yeah,
he had some good primetime games last year.
You're gonna have those games in Minnesota. But boy, when he gets out of that dome.
Yeah, but come on. How many times do we see Dak just look like garbage on TV?
Oh, well,
obviously we see we see a lot of games. It may not necessarily be a prime time, but Dak is not super reliable either.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that case. It's just you're picking between, like I said, it's not deep. So,
and he's my 9th ranked quarterback.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins is 6th. So yeah, get those guys early. Those top 5 guys, get them early. Let's go to the next question here. We've got a few more, and then we'll get out of here. But I told you guys to pick one. I have 4 guys. I have a list of 4 guys. I want you guys to pick one. You can talk. We'll talk about maybe all of them. We'll see how it goes. But I give you 4 names. I wanted you guys to give me your favorite guy that could kind of rebound into form. So these are guys that had bad 2022s, but were good quarterbacks in 2021 or maybe 2019 if you're Lamar Jackson. But here are the names: Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. Mikey, which one of those guys you feel the best about to kind of getting back into, fantasy stats that we've seen them put up before?
I would have to go with Lamar Jackson. He got his
get out of town. You hate that guy.
I do, but I legit could, when you talk about his weapons last year, like you could legit say he maybe had the worst in the league. Yeah. Like other than Mark Andrews, look at this: DeMarcus Robinson, Isaiah Likely, Devin Duvernay, Kenyon Drake. Bateman was hurt. Like it was trash. And even if I don't like Odell Beckham, he's still better than those guys. The rookie Flowers. They brought in Nelson Aguilar. Maybe Dobbins is healthy. Like it's a better supporting cast, and they brought in a new OC that's, more pass friendly than, they were last year. So, out of the 4 guys you give me, I will take Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson, ranked 7th, but he doesn't feel good about it. I love how this kind of turned into all these highly ranked guys and still doesn't like them. So Lamar Jackson, Todd, you have him 6th, but out of those 4 guys, do you feel like he's the best guy to rebound here in 2023, or do you have another name?
Well, I'm going to go with a homer pick, and please God, Russell Wilson has to get better. Like he's just too good. Sean Payton's got to fix him. And I think Russell Wilson can rebound, and we can see Russell Wilson, from years past. And I think now he's a little bit more mobile now, running. And I think, Sean Payton's going to let him be Russell Wilson, but also, still, the thing that we didn't see last year that I hope we see this year is just more quick passes, and more quick passes equals to
completions.
Ding, ding, ding. So that, yeah, my sound effect isn't as cool as yours, but yes, Russell Wilson, I think will rebound, and we will see the Russell Wilson that we're paying almost $500,000 or $500 million to.
I don't know if we're paying him that much. He's not
Well,
under the Patrick Mahomes contract.
Well, was it $234 million? So okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
not quite. But anyway, the point is, the point is, I see Russell Wilson rebounding, like just eons and stars and beyond. How back to the form he was before.
I think that's just a Bronco fan talking there, but
Yeah.
I understand. Go ahead,
Dude.
Mikey.
Well, no, I just want to mention something about Aaron Rodgers. Like, and this is
Please.
why this is why I don't look at total points, because like the dude has not thrown. Do you guys realize the last time that he's thrown for over 300 yards in a game was like 22 games ago?
That is a ton. He had 0 50-point games last year.
Yeah.
And only 5 40-point games. And he played 17 games. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, there is that. He's with a new team. He's got some better weapons.
But even then,
I just don't know if he's that good anymore.
He has one better weapon because he took Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard with him to the Jets. So he has Garrett Wilson. That's an upgrade.
And I think a better offensive line. Well, his offensive line is not super great with the Jets. But yeah, a lot of those guys came with him. If somehow they can pick up Dalvin Cook, which has been in the news, then that would help for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I have him ranked 13th, a couple spots behind Russell Wilson. I just don't know I don't think he's MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore. And they may not ask him to either.
But he's mad.
Last thing I'll say, I'll talk about the other guy we didn't really talk about was Matt Stafford. I mean, it's only been 2 years that Matthew Stafford threw for close to 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns. And I know everything kind of exploded. Everything went wrong. A lot of injuries, including Matt Stafford, who only played in 9 games. Cooper Kupp's obviously dealing with an injury now, so that doesn't help my case at all. But I wouldn't be surprised. Matt Stafford's a good quarterback. I mean, their offensive line's not great. It was ranked 28th last year, so that doesn't help either. But if McVay can get anything out of the offensive line, if Matt Stafford can be anywhere near what he was just 2 years ago and have Cooper Kupp back and available, I think he can rebound. I don't know if he'll get to those same stats, but I think he'll be better than where he was kind of going last year. So last couple of things here before we get out of here. I wanted you guys to give me one sleeper quarterback and one bust quarterback. Mikey, give me a sleeper quarterback.
Okay, that's good. You do this one first because I have a feeling Todd Sleeper is going to be my bust.
Fun.
Oh, sleeper. Mine was Deshaun Watson. Like,
okay, yeah, right.
It's been a couple years since he's, could call him a bad person, which he is.
Well, that's not what we're doing on this show.
He is, but
that's not. Yeah, that's not our focus.
But there's no reason why I don't think that he should be able to get back to what he's doing. Like, he's going to be they have Nick Chubb, but I mean, ultimately, if they're going to want to be a player, like Deshaun Watson's going to have to do what he was doing in Houston, which is carrying it on his back. And like, Cleveland doesn't have the greatest weapons, but I mean, I think it's sufficient enough to where he's going to have the opportunity to be back into that top 10 mix as far as starters go.
Gosh, I don't know, Miguel. He was so bad. And I understand he didn't play the year before, so there was a lot to learn and to get into that system with Cleveland.
But he wasn't even allowed to be around the team though either.
Yeah. But
now
he just looked awful. He was sacked 20 times in 6 games.
Yeah.
That is a ton. And then a lot of it was his fault. I mean, they have a good offensive line. Ranked second in the league coming into this year. I'm not saying he can't get better. I don't know if he's a top 10 guy. I don't know. I mean, the thing I like about this pick, well, I don't agree he's a top 10 guy. The thing I like about your pick, Miguel, is that he's an incredible, if he pays off in this lottery ticket situation, he pays off big. And I know you have him 10, so I know that's not someone you probably feel comfortable starting, but if somehow he can get in, because for the first 3 or 4 years of his career, he was always in the top 8 in terms of fantasy points because he could run the ball. He was incredibly accurate, especially down the field. I don't know. I'm not super high on him, but that's just me. Todd, give me a sleeper quarterback.
Desmond Ridder.
We're going back to this well.
That wasn't the one I thought it was.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What do you Desmond Ridder that you like?
Okay, so obviously only 4 games. It's a small sample size. I get it. He's a mobile quarterback, and I think again, Bijan Robinson is going to help him out a lot too, in the sense of he'll have he won't have to throw as much, but I think he still is going to, but it's gonna make the defenses, kind of have to think a little bit more, just because okay, well, this is a second year, but this is his first year starting. So you think they're going to run the ball? They're going to run the ball a lot with Robinson, but I think Desmond Ridder is going to surprise a lot of people.
So, okay, definition of a sleeper here, because you have him ranked 19th. Like, if he truly is a sleeper, like what is the upside and his potential to finish at?
I say he finishes top 15. So that gives him. So that's not jolting him up in the top 10 by any means, but give him a little bit room to improve, and think he'll and I think too he can run, so that'll help with his with the rushing touchdowns as well too. If obviously they're probably going to give the rock to Bijan Robinson at the goal line, but at times too he can run a little bit to get out of trouble.
You feel good about that, Miguel?
He doesn't.
You like some Desmond Ridder?
I don't like Desmond Ridder.
No, of course not.
No, of course not. One guy I'll talk about it quick. My sleeper was actually Matt Stafford, but I kind of want to mention Brock Purdy. And I know he only played in 9 games, had 13 touchdowns and 4 picks, which is pretty impressive. Offensive line's middle of the pack, but man, you just look at the weapons. You talk about Christian McCaffrey. You talk about Deebo Samuel. You talk about Brandon Ayuk. You talk about George Kittle. Like, my God, how do you not succeed? And he succeeded with those guys last year. And then the scary part is that do they run the ball more than they throw with Brock Purdy? How long is his leash? If Trey Lance starts to figure some things out, because they have so much draft capital in Trey Lance. But I have Purdy ranked 20th right now, but he could kind of shoot up the standings if he continues that great play. You wonder if it was a flash in the pan. But because 13 touchdowns and 4 picks is pretty impressive, and he played well in those playoff games, if I remember correctly. Mike, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but that's someone who could fly up the rankings.
I think it's, for me though, it's a case of better real life team and system,
good defense, don't have to throw.
Yeah, versus and then Deebo Samuel run. It's they're going to be a good team, but they don't. The way that they play and run the offense is not conducive to super high fantasy performance from quarterback.
Yeah. You just see those weapons and you drool. And Deebo can catch. Yeah, Deebo runs the ball, but he catch the ball. Christian McCaffrey can catch the ball. He in those 9 games, he didn't have a single 50-point game, so there's something to that. But he was also a rookie. Maybe they let him go. Maybe they'll let him throw a few more. But if we're just talking about sleepers, that's just someone that popped up on the screen. Todd, you want to give me a bust quarterback for this season?
I'm gonna go with Ryan Tannehill. I just think, yes, they went and got Hopkins, and I know that that helps that helps the offense, just dramatically. But I'm not a big Ryan Tannehill fan anyway. I think if anything, when it comes down to it, that Will Levis guy will be the quarterback come towards season's end, and so forth. So yeah, no, I'm just not a Ryan Tannehill believer. Just just because of the fact they have Derrick Henry there.
Well, I don't know if anybody's really a fan of Ryan Tannehill.
That's like, I don't like the pick only because it's like saying like, well, I think the Houston Texans are going to be a bad team. I don't know. It's like too like, I don't, like you say, I don't think anybody.
Well, it's the definition of bust, right? It's a guy that is projected to do well, and we don't think he's going to do as well as he's being drafted or as well as people perceive him to be. And everybody, at least between us, have him ranked 25th, 24th, and 26th. And the magazine I'm looking at now has him 27th. So no one really has him as, there's no high expectations for Ryan Tannehill. He's not even a backup quarterback, according to, if you talk about 12-team league, everybody drafts a backup quarterback, there's 24 of them. So he's barely a backup quarterback. Yeah, I mean, he's just not a big fantasy producer. The only reason he's been anything fantasy relevant in the past is because he's had those rushing touchdowns where he had 7 in back-to-back years, but he's not a big completion guy, not a big touchdown guy. He had 33 a couple of years ago, but since then, 21 and 13. And he dealt with some injuries, but just not a guy that's super high on anybody's list. Who is your bust, Miguel?
Oh, come on. Justin Fields. I mean, I hate him. Todd, 8th.
He's one of the guys. Yeah.
Really? 8th? Justin Fields, 8th? Are you kidding me? 8th?
Wow.
For a guy that, couldn't even average 13 completions a game?
He has some better weapons now. They went and got DJ Moore, and
he has one better weapon, and that is DJ Moore. But are you telling me
that's all it takes?
That really? Okay, so when we do this receivers podcast, I better see DJ Moore in top 15, or I'm just gonna blow because there is no way in our league that. And if I'm wrong, man, I will eat it at the end of the season. But there is not a chance in hell Justin Fields is finishing in the top 10. No chance.
Board bet?
Oh yeah. I was just going to say that.
Easiest board bet I've ever won.
Board bet. So the bet is, will Justin Fields finish in the top 10? And that includes 10. So if you're in the top 10, Todd says yes, he's going to finish in the top 10. Mikey says no. Is that correct? Is that where we're going with?
That is what we're going with.
So Todd says yes. Mikey says no, and I'm going to go no as well.
Mikey says hell no.
Hell no. Let me write the hell no. For someone who had Justin Fields for a few weeks during the season, he did have 2 50-point games and even a 60-point game. However, the completions were incredibly low, 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. His rushing totals during that 5-week period was ridiculous. Averaging over 120 yards per game. He had 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. And while, yes, DJ Moore is a better option than Darnell Mooney, I don't know if it's enough. He's still young enough where he can improve.
What am I missing with this DJ Moore stuff again?
I'm saying he's better than Darnell Mooney. I'm not saying he's a top flight guy. I'm saying it is. I'm trying to give Todd credit that they're trying to give Fields options, better passing options, because he's still learning as a passer. So will it help him move up a few spots than where he finished last year? I don't know. For him to be a top 10 guy, he's got to be able to do exactly what he did rushing wise and get better even on the passing end. I think that's too much for him to do. If anything, for him to be a better NFL quarterback, he's got to throw the ball more and be more efficient with his throws and then run second, not run first, because that just doesn't translate well in today's NFL. Because, I mean, they still lost a ton of games despite his ability to rush the football. So if they're really, truly trying to get better, they're trying to give him more options on the passing end, and he's got to get better as a passer. I don't believe he's going to be top 10, but I'm just trying to say there's room for improvement. I just don't know if it's enough for what Todd wants to do. Any last words, Miguel, before I move on to my bust?
No, move on.
Okay. So mine is, we kind of talked about it, Dak Prescott. I'm not super high on him. I get it. 2 years ago, it's the same conversation I had with Matt Stafford. Oh, he was good 2 years ago. Dak was pretty solid 2 years ago. I don't think he's a good NFL quarterback. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a good fantasy quarterback. And maybe Brandon Cooks comes in. I mean, he's what, 29, I think, right now. I'm talking about Brandon Cooks. The offensive line's good. They lost Zeke. Maybe they bring him back. If this team wants to win, if you talk about defense, right? They have a great defense. It's going to be running the ball, defense, and then Dak passes third. And I don't know if that equates to enough fantasy points.
So the one thing that I do like about Dak this year is down inside the 10. Like, Dallas was more apt to run Zeke down there, and now without him and a smaller back in Tony Pollard, like I just guessing that he would have more opportunities to throw down there.
Well, I mean, even if he runs, like, can he get back to those days? I would feel a lot better if he could run the ball, but he doesn't run at all. And I don't know if that's just because he's not 100% back from the multi-leg injuries he's had in his career, or if that's just not in the game plan of the offense. Ronald Jones, if this matters to anybody, suspended for, I think, the first couple of games. So that gives more opportunity to pass or allow Dak to run. I guess we'll kind of wait and see on that. But yeah, quarterbacks. The one thing we always give Todd all kinds of crap for not ranking guys, but it's time to get on Mikey for making a huge mistake in his rankings. You know who he doesn't have ranked, Todd? Did you look at his rankings at all? I know Mikey's racing through his list right now.
No, I don't know. Who do you have ranked?
Well, he must not like Derek Carr very much because I don't see him in his rankings.
Oh, that was a typo.
David Carr.
Yeah.
Who is this David Carr?
Yeah.
I've done it. I'm sure I've said it on the podcast a few times in the past, so I just thought that was funny. We get Todd so much crap about it. But there you go. Some interesting talk on quarterbacks. Todd, what are we going to talk about next week?
Running backs. And running backs, are they a dime a dozen? You'll just have to find out.
Wow, that was like the best tease I've ever heard Todd bring out. That was a fantastic job, Todd. That's a great way to end the show.
Cool.
He could use the pick-me-up after that Justin Fields nonsense.
Definitely so. Well, gentlemen, thanks for coming on. Mikey Renaud, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next week on the MHA podcast.